And we're live.
And we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to Rerun It Back, Reflections on the 3-Channel Era. I am Jack.
And I'm Scott.
And full disclosure, Scott and I had a massive fight leading up to this episode. Scott wanted to examine a sitcom. I wanted to examine a drama. But as luck would have it, we found common ground on the high seas.
We did indeed.
And that music kind of gives you an idea of what we found. We found a show chock full of drama, comedy, celebrities, sort of celebrities, and sadly no pirates. A show that, well, promises something for everyone. Yes, today we are featuring The Love Boat, which aired on ABC from September of 1977 to May of 1986. And our sample episode is episode 10 of season 2, which aired on November 17th, 1978. Now, if that date sounds familiar, it's because this is what ABC programmed opposite the Star Wars Holiday Special. This episode beat the holiday special in the ratings, so we were kind of hoping that this experience was a little bit easier on us. How was your cruise on the Pacific Princess, Scott?
Well, I got to admit that as somebody who watched this show pretty regularly as a kid, as an adult, I confess I am a little disappointed. It's so simplistic and so formulaic, and not to mention, by today's standards, the Pacific Princess was a pretty ghetto-ass looking ship. And the behavior of some of the crew, in particularly the doctor, would not fly in today's era. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Yeah, this was a massive meh, a massive mid, a mid meh.
Yeah.
It was not something that I will sit down and watch again. It's strange because it went into like syndication, I think early 80s. It would come on like locally in Kansas City. It'd come on like 10 a.m. or so. And like,
so same thing. So every summer when I was home as a kid, there were 2 programs I would watch during the daytime when I was bored and, with the babysitter: The Price is Right and The Love Boat.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
living
ever
right
recall
there.
really watching it in prime time, but oh boy, daytime reruns, hell yes.
Yeah, it was. I remember it would come on. I think it was during Christmas vacation for me. And I really, oh boy, it was great. I thought it was, for an 11-year-old, it seemed sophisticated. It is not sophisticated, but
it is not sophisticated at all. But as a child, I mean, come on, especially once they got Captain Steubing's niece or whatever in season 2 or 3 to come on board. It was like, wow, I was jealous. It's like I could be on a cruise ship, having adventures, and instead I'm stuck in small town America.
Yeah,
but again, I digress.
Okay, so let's kind of just give some background here. This series, this is per Wikipedia, your go-to resource for all things Love Boat. The series was set on the cruise ship MS Pacific Princess, MS standing for my ship, and revolved around the ship's captain, Merrill Steubing, played by the great Gavin MacLeod. He, of course, gained really fame. Fame? Yeah, fame. He's going to live forever, but he didn't. He gained fame as Murray Slaughter on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, a smarmy news writer, riffing at the expense of Ted Baxter. A little bit of a spirit animal for yours truly, given my background. But at any rate, he had his crew, and there were passengers played by guest actors for each episode, again per Wikipedia, having romantic, dramatic, and humorous adventures. The show was developed by, I believe, William Lloyd Bombs, was, I'm got to look this up right now. It was Wilford Lloyd Baums, an American screenwriter and producer. He also developed, or he produced, Wonder Woman. And this show was based on a book, a tell-all book called Love Boats by one Geraldine Saunders. In it, she detailed accounts of real-life romance she witnessed on the job. Now, to give you an idea of what the book was like, the Los Angeles Times said it was full of, quote, exotic ports, erotic games on a sea of sun, sex, and booze. Which...
Which, you know, for primetime television actually was not that far off. And because, and I go back to the Doctor in particular. So the Doctor, whose name eludes me, kind of his shtick was he was a bit of a horn dog.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was hitting on female passengers pretty damn much every episode, including this one. We were not more than 2 or 3 minutes into the beginning of this episode where, you know, all the passengers, aka the guest stars, are showing up.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is already hitting on Roz Kelly, aka Pinky Tuscadero, Fonzie's girlfriend from Happy Days. But again, I digress. It's just like, wow, one of your supporting characters in a primetime TV show who's in a role of real responsibility as the ship's doctor, also is like trying to go to bed with half of the females on board. Yeah, that is not going to fly in this day and age, kids. Comedy.
This is pre-cancel culture, for sure. A lot of
it was pre a lot of things.
But it was never really, I mean, it was very lukewarm and unoffensive.
It was very, very inoffensive. It was essentially kind of, as you summed it up, a little dramedy, dromedary camels. No, some drama, some comedy, but in essence, you know, you would have at least one couple who were like, would come together and discover love on the Love Boat, and then you'd have like one or two couples that were like already together when they came on board but were having marital issues or some sort of issues. But in the end, everybody is happy. They all learn life's lessons on a weekend cruise to Acapulco, and they all leave better people. It's very simplistic.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Yeah. One other thing I'll add about this is one of the producers on this, the showrunner on this was one Aaron Spelling, and you're going to hear his name a lot, I'm sure, in the future. This guy was a bit of a juggernaut in the early 80s, late 70s. Here are some of the shows that he is responsible for. The Mod Squad, which was a kind of a cultural moment for television. Charlie's Angels, Fantasy Island, Dynasty, which I'm obsessed with Dynasty, but you don't need to know that now. Beverly Hills 90210. He is the father of one Tori Spelling. And it's spinoff Melrose Place. That was he was really involved in all this. I think Starsky and Hutch he was also involved with. But when they filmed this thing, they actually used ships in the filming. A lot of it was done, like the interiors were filmed on a soundstage in LA. But there were a lot of scenes that they would film on the Pacific Princess and the Island Princess, which was another one of the Pacific Princess boats. And hey, Jack, isn't that a massive product placement throughout the series? Yes, it is. The theme song that we know and love so well, recorded by Jack Jones, until the final 2 seasons, which were a cover version sung by Dionne Warwick. I'm not going to judge which was better than the other. I think they're both fine. But did you know, Scott, that in the final season of The Love Boat, did you know about the Love Boat mermaids?
I read about the Love Boat mermaids on IMDb, and I do not recall them. But when I was looking through all the cast and crew who had sailed on the Love Boats over that decade or so, I was intrigued.
And one of them, Terry Hatcher. Now you know. It's
okay.
I know. It's kind of like, hey, how about that? Now mind you, this was kind of developed around 1984, which was about the time that the Showtime Lakers were becoming a thing. So my theory is, not that you asked, but my theory is they wanted to have like Laker girls for the Love Boat.
Yeah.
I would have preferred Laker girls for World News Tonight, but you know, that's whatever Aaron Spelling says. That's what happens. Guess how many you saw the number in your research, Scott, of how many guest stars appeared on the show during the show's run?
Oh, I mean, there is no Love Boat without special guest stars. I mean, and you know, sort of the concept of the special guest star was something that was really big in the 70s and into the 80s primetime television. But what really blew my mind about this particular episode, Jack, is that I went back and I IMDb'd all of the all of these special guest stars on this particular episode. So we have June Allison, we have Vivian Blaine, we have Peter Graves, we have Van Johnson, we have Roz Kelly, we have Larry Storch, and Alan Young. Now, today's generation, you're probably not going to remember any of those people except maybe Peter Graves if you remember, say, Airplane. But the thing about this is that it was mainly a lot of, they might have been A-B listers back in the heyday, which I'm talking like they were movie stars in the 40s and 50s, like June Allison and Van Johnson, for example, who were paired together in a number of films in the 40s and 50s. But what blew my mind is that they had repeat appearances as different characters on the Love Boat. So June Allison, 2 episodes. Vivian Blaine, just 1. She was done. Peter Graves, 6 episodes on the Love Boat. All right. And then Van Johnson, Roz Kelly, Larry Storch, all 3 episodes. Alan Young, 2 episodes. And they were not repeating characters. So it's like clearly they were just like, oh my God, we got to get these people back again because they were great. Come on. You remember Larry Storch. He was in F Troop. You remember Alan Young. He was in Mr. Ed. Well, no, I don't. But then again, I was not really the target demographic. Now, there were also young and up-and-coming actors who appeared on the Love Boat in later seasons. Tom Hanks was one. Courtney Cox was on there. Michael J. Fox. But for the most part, this was really kind of aimed at the greatest generation. You know, grandparents, that sort of stuff. It really was, you know.
The greatest. What a fitting tribute to the greatest generation.
It truly
is. Here's Van Johnson.
Here's Van Johnson. And, you know, I have to get this in because I recognized a lot of these names, but I still had to like do research into what they were doing. Van Johnson, probably best known for being in the Caine Mutiny with Humphrey Bogart, and then 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, big war film. But what I could not help but notice repeatedly on this episode was that Van Johnson has a very prominent scar across his entire forehead. And Van Johnson, back in 1943, just as his career was beginning to take off, was in a terrible car accident that like wrecked his face. He ended up getting a metal plate in his forehead, and it really kind of crimped his acting career to a degree. Not too bad, obviously, because he ended up on the Love Boat. Yeah. And then the other person, Roz Kelly, who I digress because we should do this on a different episode. Roz Kelly was one of the guest stars who appeared in the one and done Paul Lynde Halloween special, which I believe was in the year before. And Roz Kelly never really got over being Pinky Tuscadero, Fonzie's girlfriend. And so in the Paul Lynde Halloween specials, she was actually introduced on that show as Roz Pinky Tuscadero Kelly. So there you have that. But yeah, lots of guest stars, A-listers, B-listers, C-listers. But once again, this was for your grandparents. Safe, entertaining, romantic television.
And before we get into the episode, I do want to touch on a couple of fun facts on this. 550 guest stars appeared during
That's a
the
lot of
show's
guest
run.
stars.
Now,
That
I
is
would
a mess
assume,
of guest stars.
yeah, so I would assume that, whomever showed multiple times, that counts. I mean, look, that's a lot of guest stars, even if they're showing repeatedly. So, who has been on The Love Boat the most? That would be, per my research, Marion Ross. Yes, from Happy Days. 14 appearances. She holds the record. Number 2 would be Spanish-American guitarist and singer Charo.
I remember Charo as a kid being on multiple episodes and being kind of fascinated by her.
She's an interesting, as she seems, I got nothing bad to say about Charo. What is interesting is
guitarist.
What's that?
Very talented guitarist.
Yeah, she's a great guitarist.
But also her persona of the coochie coochie girl, and the weird bell bottoms and things.
I mean, she took catchphrases and, man, she's gotten a lot of mileage out of those. Okay, now, per my research, which this doesn't make any sense, she appeared in 10 or more episodes, again, per Wikipedia, often acting as a high-energy romantic interest. Which
she was always high. No, Charo is high energy. There is like no low energy Charo.
Okay, so moving on, 10 appearances, also Florence Henderson. And then we have 5 appearances from Betty White and 5 from Sonny Bono. Although you said there were 6 appearances by
Peter Graves, 6 episodes.
Peter Graves, my word. So let me see. I think we've got everything. Do we want to talk about the cast before we get into the guest stars?
Maybe just touch on them because, I mean, everybody I think is probably pretty familiar with the set, We have Captain Steubing.
Yeah, you got
Isaac
Steubing,
the bartender. We got Gopher the purser. We got Julie the cruise director. We got Doc, whose name eludes me.
And then Bernie Koppel.
Yeah, and then by season 3, they brought his niece on board. But yeah, it was just this core group. They made sure that everyone got on board and intervened occasionally.
Yeah.
Sometimes with hilarity and riot, as we will see in this episode.
Okay.
And then just kicked everyone off the ship at the end of the cruise.
That's pretty much it. So yeah, Steubing. Yeah, you even know about Steubing. It's Gavin MacLeod. He's a likable dude.
Very likable.
The purser, whatever that means. Fred Grandy. He was a lovable gopher. He's a Harvard graduate, Fred Grandy. Served in Congress for 8 years after the show, representing a district in Iowa. Had a gubernatorial bid that failed in '94. He's been doing conservative talk in D.C., and then he's been working at a think tank ever since. Ted Lange, he started doing Shakespeare, which I was not aware of. And then there was Lauren, and I don't know how to pronounce her name, Lauren Tews, Julie, your cruise director. Tews, Tews. I don't know. It's driving me nuts. I don't know how to pronounce it. She lost her job because she had a drug issue. Then kicked the habit and ended up coming back to the show. Seems like a likable person. I've got no issues with Lauren.
The Love Boat was not the same without cruise director Julie.
I mean
really.
They bring out somebody else. It's like, no, come on. So I think you've examined. We've hit the big ones on here. There is something about Pinky Tuscadero. I have to. We'll come back to that. So let's get into the show itself.
Let's get on. So it opens up like. Yeah, it's like every episode we get that wonderful, awesome Jack Jones song. We get the little vignettes of all the stars staring at the camera and smiling. And then there's the ship and everybody's getting on board. And Julie and Gopher are welcoming people on board. And Captain Steubing says their chief engineer has called in sick so that they got to keep their other engineer, Tony Santini, who's about to leave with his family for vacation. No, we got to keep
Larry Storch.
We can't. Yeah, cancel his shore leave. So visibly Italian American Tony Santini.
Larry Storch.
No ethnic stereotyping went on in this episode at all, especially when his family shows up. No ethnic stereotyping at all.
And then it becomes a Prego commercial once
Oh
they
my
show up.
God.
It's like from
Yeah.
the 70s. It's, hey, it's a me,
It was,
you know.
yeah, I got grandma. She's wearing a black dress with the head wrap. She's carrying a chicken. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but so yeah. So the typical thing is, as in every episode, the guest stars arrive one by one or two by two, and we sort of are introduced to. So we get Bert and Audrey Wilder. This is Van Johnson and June Allison. And there seems to be a little something wrong with June Allison. She seems very clingy and very afraid. Turns out she just recently lost her eyesight and is having a wee crisis of consciousness. She's having some issues.
She's going through it. She's
having a time of it, but that's okay. The Love Boat's going to fix that. And then Phil and Barbara Sharp, that would be Alan Young and Vivian Blaine. They show up, and Phil is kind of the swinging gambler guy. He's wearing lots of loud clothing, and Barbara, turns out she sits on a church board, but she's also like a secret matchmaker, and she's got her eyes on one Reverend Whitney, who happens to be Peter Graves, who also just happens to be taking a cruise, and she is going to make sure that the widower Reverend gets hooked up on the Love Boat. And then the girlfriend, Pinky Tuscadero, who is not named in this episode, shows up, being hit upon by the dock. But so they're all on board, and then they do their thing, and then they're like, oh, we got to get Tony Santini, the ship's engineer. He's got to stay, because we need an engineer. But there's a conflict. There's a problem. And this is what's going to set the stage for all the hilarity and riot to come, which is, Jack.
I was.
I tripped you up again.
You tripped me up. So basically, what Scott has just kind of laid out, there were the three storylines, and each of these storylines had their own title. Now, the title with Tony the engineer and his crazy family is Tony's Family. The storyline with June Allison and her loss of vision is called Her Own 2 Feet. And then the Roz Kelly...
Which is strange,
Peter
because
Graves.
you really never see her feet in the episode. I mean, I know it's a metaphor, but whatever. It's just... You would have... I don't know. We'll keep going.
And then there's Man of the Cloth, which is about Peter Graves and blah, blah, blah.
Who makes a very unconvincing reverend, in my opinion. I can't see him as a reverend. I just can't.
So typically a storyline, it was like one storyline would be straight ahead comedy. Another would be kind of more of a romantic comedy format with some dramatic elements. The Man of the Cloth one, for instance. And the third storyline would be the most dramatic of the three.
The tearjerker.
Yeah, that's the tearjerker, which is just really strange. It's a very strange mashup, but it makes sense. Now, as far as the plots of each plot line, it's very abbreviated. There aren't a lot of beats. It's sort of like, okay, so this is happening, and there's like just something. They can only cram so much into. It is
painted
minutes.
With the broadest of brushstrokes.
For real.
It is.
For real.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So like.
Okay,
yeah.
So we've introduced everybody. Peter Graves, a minister. Alan Young is the husband who goes to the track instead of church. They get on. They have the big send off with all in which everybody throws confetti and streamers, litter the ocean with that. Larry Storch. They decide you've got Isaac and Gopher and Julie and Doc all decide, okay, we're gonna Tony's family, we're all gonna kind of have them in our cabins.
So here's the catch, right?
Yeah.
So here's the catch is that Tony Santini is supposed to go on vacation for Thanksgiving with his family, and they're like, no, you have to stay on board because we need a ship's engineer because somebody's got to run these damn engines for us. And he's like, but I got my family. I promised him a vacation. So like cruise director Julie gets the great idea, right? Well, we'll still give you a vacation. Just have them all on board, thinking, oh, it's just going to be Tony and his wife and the kids. No, it's Tony, his wife, their 3 children, plus his uncle and his mother. Uncle and Mama don't speak English, and Mama, dressed all in black like a European peasant, is also carrying a chicken. So
Yeah.
they're like, okay, we got them all on board, which kind of amazes me. They all show up like they're already packed and ready to go, which is damned convenient. But again, broad brushstrokes. But there's a
Good
catch.
point.
That catch being, Jack, that, oh, apparently the ship is completely sold out. So we're going to have to let them all bunk with us. And because no one thought about this, even though this was Captain Stubing's idea in the first place, we can't tell the captain that Tony's family is on board, much less that there's a chicken. Comedy, right? So, as you say, the crew all's like, oh, well, someone's going to bunk with Julie, and someone's going to bunk with Isaac, and someone's going to bunk with Gopher, and it's all going to be copacetic, except it's not, because there's a chicken and children, and it's the Love Boat where you have, swinging singles.
Yeah,
but I digress.
It was very strange. Although the child in the family had the best line of the episode, which is "Don't mess with Grandma's chicken." I just like Grandma, that line.
You never ever, and this is good advice in general, kids. Do not mess with Grandma's chicken. But Grandma apparently brought the chicken not because she was fond of it, but apparently they wanted fresh eggs for breakfast. And then there's an aside later of like, thank God they didn't want fresh milk for breakfast. Ha ha ha. But yeah, so Italian American family is stowed away secretly out of place with the crew, and they're told, avoid the captain at all costs.
Okay.
Meanwhile...
Right. So to avoid confusing anybody, as if this is not confusing enough, I think the best way to proceed here, Scott, is to play out each storyline all together. I
think that's a good idea.
We'll hit the rest of the Tony's family, and then we'll work our way to the other things. So I'm looking through my notes here. Kid hanging at Gopher's gets milk. Isaac tells a hip version of Goldilocks to put him to sleep. Chicken is sleeping in Julie's cabin. Doc almost gets busted by Captain Stubing, who asks Doc if you heard or seen any chickens. Looking through here. Hey, they're making a pasta, is what I wrote.
Yes. Oh, that was the best part. So it's like halfway through the episode, right? And, after everybody, all the crew is like, oh, thank gosh, this is totally going to work out. And then it's like, oh, wow, this smells good. Oh, Grandma is making lunch for everybody in Julie's room. Now, they don't explain where they get all of this food. But that's beside the point. So Grandma's cooking, and it's a big Italian thing, and they're making pasta, and Isaac's like, I'm going to go get some wine. Well, Isaac takes off and doesn't shut the door in time. The chicken gets out. So Angelo, the little kid's got to go after the chicken. And he catches the chicken, except he gets caught by the captain. So busted. And then the captain's like, well, these are all stowaways, and it is my duty as captain to basically either put them off the ship at the next port, or they're going to have to pay their way. And, of course, they can't kick them off because they need Tony to run the damn ship. But, of course, Tony's only the engineer, so he doesn't make jack shit. So then it's like, oh, my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to pay for this? And Tony's like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
they do figure it out.
And they do figure it out. We'll get to that. Basically, all
you
need to know... We'll get to that point because there's a little bit of a crossover of the storylines, and I want to make sure we don't spoil the surprise on them. So let's go ahead and just knock out the drama storyline, Her Own 2 Feet with Van Johnson and June Allison. As I wrote, definitely the drama storyline. She's lost her vision for some reason. I don't know. She's going through it. She's not having a good time.
She is definitely not having a good time. She's very clingy. She's very nervous. She can't admit to that she has become blind. She refuses to. Basically, she's like, I'm never going to live again, and I'll just depend on you for everything. And he's like, but dear, one day I may be gone, and I brought your cane just in case you want to use it. It's right here.
Yeah, it was one of these storylines. It was like, there wasn't really, it was just like, I don't like this, which, if I'm in her shoes, I get it. I'd probably be upset too. I also wouldn't be on a cruise. but I'm not judging. So, books her to a beauty salon. And then there's always these moments, this would happen on the Love Boat, where Doc would kind of step in and kind of say, hey, listen, because her husband was covering for her, that she's not disabled or whatever. And Doc's like, you need to be honest.
He's
with
like,
her.
basically, you gotta let her be blind.
Yeah. And Doc, when in those moments when Doc would be like that, I always thought that was kind of cool. He was a very
sensible man.
He's a very sensible dude.
When he wasn't hitting on the passengers, he was dispensing little pearls of wisdom, which went really far. And in this case, it was very touching because, Brent and Audrey kind of have this little moment in their cabin where, or Bert, I guess, he's like, darling, look, you can do this. This has not changed you. You're still my beautiful wife, and you will still live a full life. So here's your cane. I'm going down to the bar. You can meet me there if you can make it.
So I'll interject this. Did you see anything about June Allison's accident that she had when she was a kid?
I did not. Did she also have an accident?
She had an accident. At the age of 8, a tree branch fell on her while she was on her tricycle.
Oh.
And she was holding her dog at the time. Killed the dog.
That's
and
terrible.
Completely messed her up. But she, and this is what, 30s or something? So you're talking about really, really backwards medical technology. And she actually made a full recovery. I think it broke there was like some back injuries or something. But I mean, like, to go from that into a really long time acting career. I think that was it. There was something else I'll dump that in later. So basically, she uses her cane, walks to the promenade deck bar, dances with her husband.
Wait a minute.
Did I miss something?
It's more dramatic than that. It's because so Van Johnson is at the bar. He's kind of drowning his sorrows, and Doc and Gopher come over. It's like, it's okay, man. And then they look. There's June Allison. She's decided to use her cane. And so Gopher walks like, well, hello, how you doing there, attractive lady? And basically they very quickly, they rebuild all of her self-esteem within 30 seconds. And then the captain's like, would you care to dance? And she's like, I'm blind. And he's like, well, I'm tone deaf, but I think between the two of us, we can manage. Ha ha. So they go, they dance. And Van Johnson's like, oh, she's cured. So then he cuts in and everything's copacetic. She has overcome her self-esteem issues and they love each other. And
yay.
That's pretty much it for them.
Resolution. Great. Okay.
So now on to Phil and Barbara Sharp.
So then we've got the minister and Pinky Tuscadero.
Or Reverend Whitney. They're kind of interconnected here.
Yeah, I didn't write down the character names. It's just Peter Graves and Pinky. Peter and Pinky.
So Pete and Pinky, they meet. So Phil and Barbara Sharp. She's going to get him hooked up. She's going to get the Reverend hooked up with a nice woman on the Love Boat, because there's lots of nice single women running around the Love Boat, hence the name. But meanwhile, the Reverend and the stripper, they meet cute in Shay's Lounge, joining Shay's Lounges by the curiously small swimming pool, and they just kind of hit it off. And then that evening, they end up at the same table at dinner, which happens to be right next to Phil and Barbara's table.
Yeah.
And so Peter Graves is like, Pete and Pinky are chatting. It's like, oh, what do you do? It's like, well, I'm a reverend, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, what do you do? Well, I'm a dancer. Oh, in Vegas. Oh, that's nice. Well, actually, I take my clothes off a lot. And at which point, Barbara Sharp at the next table, who's been eavesdropping, does a spit take. And all of a sudden, she is horrified that the good Reverend has fallen for a lady of questionable background. Although, as it turns out, she's the stripper with a heart of gold. So Barbara Sharp is just getting her knickers in a knot because, oh, how dare the Reverend associate himself with such a trashy woman? But she's not. She's a beautiful, thoughtful, sensitive person, and the Reverend's like, she wouldn't hurt a fly, and she speaks ill of no one, and she's also really hot. But that's beside the point. And so he's like, I'm going to do what I want. And she's like, Barbara Sharp is like, no, I'm going to tell the church board and I'm going to get you fired. And meanwhile, her husband's like, yeah, you're a bitch. I'm done with you. I'm going to go to the casino and,
Yeah,
slots.
that was an interesting Alan Young, best known as Wilbur on Mr. Ed. I will always hold a fond place in my heart for Mr. Ed. And Alan Young for that matter. But boy, Alan Young he is a gambling fool.
He really
and again slots. He was really into slots,
machines. But also the big attention in their marriage, as you noted earlier. He was always going to the track instead of going to church with Barbara. And I can't help but wonder, Jack, do you think Mr. Ed ever ran any of those races?
That's a very interesting observation that he was playing.
Coincidence?
That's a very interesting observation, and I did not notice that. Now, when you were talking about, what's Church Lady? I just called her Church Lady.
Her name is Barbara.
Her name is Barbara.
And her husband is Phil.
She was played, this is Vivian Blaine playing this. I just want to interject this. Vivian Blaine at one point in the 40s was the headliner at the Copa in New York, at the Copacabana. Yeah. And she, her opening act, Martin and Lewis.
No kidding.
Yep. This is per Jerry Lewis's autobiography.
Also, she was in Guys and Dolls.
Yep.
She was also in Guys and Dolls. So her past career would indicate, kind of a swinging hip chick, but boy, she was a tight, prim little bitter old lady, very pious.
She's church lady, man. She's church lady.
She was just gonna get the Reverend Whitney fired from his church, and she was just all gonna do it. And then Alan Young, aka Phil, is like, yeah, I'm done with you. I'm moving out of the house into an apartment next week.
Which is really weird. That's a
broad brushstrokes, my friend.
Word.
Broad brushstrokes. It's like that alone is enough to snap her out of her whatever and realize the error of her ways. And they have a makeup in the casino.
Okay, so I'm not going to get into the actual how it basically what ends up happening is Alan Young, he makes nice with Church Lady. They're going to stay together. And then and then a silver dollar that one of Tony's kids has,
Angelo.
Doc gave him the silver dollar. He handed on the silver dollar, gives it to Alan Young, who plays one last slot, spits out all this money, and that is what pays for Tony's family, their cruise, their Thanksgiving cruise. And it's an agreeable resolution for the three storylines. They disembark. They have a laugh. Executive producer Aaron Spelling. And that's it for the night. And now Fantasy Island's coming up next. So tell me, Scott, you ever been on a cruise?
I have not. But I've been on a hovercraft. Does that count?
Was there a purser? Was there a cruise director?
I have no idea. It was a hovercraft between like Wales and Ireland. I was in high school on some school trip. I just thought it was cool that I was on a hovercraft, but I don't remember much more than that. Have you ever been on a cruise?
I haven't. I don't want to go on a cruise.
No, I've from everything that I've heard, it's along the lines of that a supposedly fun thing I'll never do again.
Yeah.
But what blows my mind again is that, we see these commercials nowadays for like Disney cruises or Holland America cruises or, whatever. And these are like gigantic floating hotels with waters, with like water slides and discotheques and 10 million restaurants and 58 levels and outbreaks of norovirus and everything. And then you look at the Pacific Princess docking in Acapulco and it's got like 2 or 3 levels, and the interior is like cheap wooden paneling and shitty velour and brass seating, and like it really struck me because at one point, sort of in the middle of the episode, they have the big Thanksgiving dinner in the main restaurant, and everyone's sitting at the captain's table, and it looks like I've seen Red Lobsters that looked more upscale than this place.
Well,
I mean, maybe cruises were just a lot simpler back in the 70s and 80s. I don't know. But it's like, I take a look at that and it's like, that would not ever make me want to do a cruise. It looks fucking trashy as hell.
according to the Centers for Disease Control, last year, transitioning into this year, because I mean, some people are going for the holidays, there were about 23 outbreaks. Most of them are norovirus, which you have not. If you've had norovirus, you know what fun it must be to have norovirus on a boat.
You shit your brains out.
And throwing up, and I think when
it's
I
coming
had
out
it,
of both ends.
when I had norovirus, real talk, I think I was asleep for 27 hours. It was, I mean, obviously getting up to use it, but I was like out of it. But that's neither here nor there.
But there was never any norovirus on the Love Boat.
Well, except the Coral Princess outbreak of February 21 of last year to March 9th. That was a norovirus.
Well,
Holland America.
I meant like the TV show, The Love Boat. There was never an episode, despite the fact that they had a ship's doctor who was there was never any, there was drama, romantic drama, but there was never anything like there was never an outbreak of norovirus. There wasn't even, despite the name and it being the late 70s, no one ever showed up with STDs or anything, which also kind of blows my mind. But again, primetime TV, big brushstrokes aimed at the greatest generation. We didn't talk about that stuff. They're just there to go on a nice weekend cruise to Acapulco and fall in love.
And see Marion Ross for the 12th or 14th time.
Or Florence Henderson, or all of them, right? Yeah, again, keep it clean, kids. Keep it clean.
Right. Yeah, fine. So let's talk takeaways.
Take it away, Jack.
Oh, me?
What's your takeaways?
I threw it to you because I had none. I got really nothing. It was
it's the Love Boat. We watched this as children when we were home alone and bored during the holidays.
And we had terrible taste.
You gotta have one takeaway. Look, we did not have terrible taste. We're doing this. We have great taste. We're going to get discovered one day because of this shit. No, takeaways. Okay.
It was better than the Star Wars Holiday Special. Would you agree?
Okay, I will say this, and thank you for bringing that up. I got to admit, I am a little puzzled by the fact that this beat the Star Wars Christmas special in the ratings. Why? Because the Love Boat had already been running for a year. It was a known commodity. If you missed one, I mean, I can't imagine people were like, oh my God, I got to tune in and see Vivian Blaine. Whereas the Star Wars Christmas special is like, this was a one and done, man. This was a special. And this was on the heels of Star Wars. I mean, okay, granted, the holiday special sucked ass. We already talked about this a couple episodes ago, but still, even if I had known that, I would still rather watch the Star Wars episode than watch this fucking Love Boat episode because, Star Wars was bad. It was bad and kind of inexplicable, but the Love Boat was just bland and predictable, episode after episode after episode. I mean, the only two episodes that stick out in my mind from the Love Boat series are not this one. One was they had the Pointer Sisters on an episode. Oh. They sang He's So Shy to Isaac the bartender, and he danced with them. That fascinated me as a child. And two, they had an episode I actually discovered as an adult. It was a fashion show week where they had Halston, Jeffrey Bean, and Bob Mackie show up. And they had to introduce each one of them to the crew because most of America had no idea who these people were. Also, and they surrounded Halston by all these beautiful women because, of course, he's not gay. Not at all. Anyhow, again, I digress. So, the hot take, I can't figure out why the hell this beat Star Wars in the ratings. Hot take number 2, the Love Boat was not the same until they got Captain Stubing's niece on board. Hot take number 3, Doc was kind of a lech, and he should have been fired. I don't care how many pearls of wisdom he dispensed. That man should have been fired for hitting on Pinky Tuscadero.
Okay, I do have one takeaway while we're talking about Roz Kelly. Now, I'm sure this is not a proud moment in her life, but she had an issue with the law. In 1998, November of 1998, she was arrested for fire. This is Roz Kelly, better known as TV's Pinky Tuscadero. She fired a 12-gauge shotgun into the living room window of a neighbor's house after a car alarm had woke her up. She also shot a neighbor's car and another nearby car. The neighbor was not home at the time, and she pleaded no contest and was ordered to receive counseling and paying restitution and all that stuff. That was my one takeaway, because, first of all, I think the name Pinky Tuscadero is one of those things that's just fun to say. I enjoy saying the name Pinky Tuscadero. It speaks to kind of one of the cooler elements of Happy Days. And now that I know this about Pinky Tuscadero, I like her a lot more.
You do not fuck with Pinky Tuscadero,
absolutely
even in her
not.
advanced age.
Absolutely not. I will never speak ill of that lady. And that was, as far as I'm concerned, that was I will let that slide. The only other thing, I'm not going to watch another episode of this. It was a slog. I didn't laugh at all. It all felt very formulaic. But it was,
and despite the fact that there was a very prominent laugh track in the show, I found none of this particularly hilarious.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think, just as I'm reading about just the cast, I they seem like lovely people. They all get along still. You know, the ones who are still alive. There's no real behind-the-scenes stuff except for what happened with Julie, the cruise director. I would maybe insert that there was probably a lot of drug use among. No, I'm not going to say that. I don't know if there was rampant drug use behind the scenes. I really don't think there was.
It was the late 70s. It's the level. If this had happened in real life, it would be a little bit spicier than what we saw every week.
I'll put it this way. If it were a man, I think maybe they would have let it slide a little more. But nonetheless, she came back. She kicked the habit. Gotta love her. And, and it was more of the same. But that's really all I got. Scott, do you have any closing thoughts aside from the takeaways?
No, I'm kind of with you, Jack. I don't think I really need to see another episode of The Love Boat. I would rather just kind of cherish those childhood memories of when I would tune in the summertime and enjoy it after The Price is Right.
Lovely memories all. Say goodnight, Scott.
Good night, Scott.
Thanks again. We'll be back in a few. Peace out.
Please, and keep the wait. Before we go, please keep those letters, those cards, those emails, those telegrams coming. They slowed down. They really slowed to a trickle these last few weeks, and I'm getting a little lonely.
I'm just getting empty boxes now.
Damn, you always get the coolest stuff. I'm not getting anything. What did I say?
It's better than the old socks. But at any rate, hey, again, if you made it this far, thanks for streaming it, y'all. And we'll be back in a few.
We'll be back in a few weeks. Yes, sir.
Later.
Bye-bye.